Well, hello, everyone. I'm Mike,
And I'm Matt.
and this is Mind Your Own Business with Mike and Matt Vodcast. So, our plan for every broadcast is to interview a business owner, an entrepreneur, for each broadcast, ask them a few questions that we hope will be helpful for you, our listeners, and our viewers who want to be inspired and want to learn how you can be better business owners and entrepreneurs. Our goal is to leave you with at least one good business nugget each time. As a reminder, and this is really fun for us, we are currently broadcasting live on the Mind Your Own Business with Mike and Matt Facebook page, the Voice of Reason Consulting Facebook page, and Video Social's YouTube channel. So today, I'd like to welcome John Lundholm. John is the founder of 343, an NFT art company whose mission is to vastly expand art collecting and ultimately create an entirely new world of 21st century entertainment that everyone can enjoy. So for those of you who are not familiar with NFT, NFT stands for non-fungible token. It's a digital asset that represents internet collectibles like art, music, and games with an authentic certificate created by blockchain technology, and it cannot be forged or otherwise manipulated. So John brings 20 years of direct to consumer financial sales and marketing. He's worked in tech support, he studied psychology, he studied marketing, and most of all, persuasion. So he's an obsessed hobbyist in arts and cutting edge technology. And as he told Matt and myself, he spent much of his childhood collecting baseball cards, comic books, music, autographs, and toys. And I think he's doing the same version of that in his adulthood with 343. Well, anyway, welcome, John, and please tell us what you do.
Sure. Hey, everybody. So my team and I are creating this new NFT company, but we're really doing a bit of a different take on it. A lot of the plays in the space right now are sort of what amounts to selling JPEGs. And we're looking at it and saying the technology has so much more power and capability than that. And there's so much that it's going to end up doing. And we're really looking to push that envelope forward to create a completely different experience. As you noted, almost an entirely new entertainment class, a 21st century type of entertainment. And we're also looking to take the technology and the functions that blockchain provides and make it something that everyone can enjoy, not just sort of the affluent few that are enjoying it so far in some places.
Well, I think this is really fascinating to hear about this technology. And since this is the Matt and Mike show, we'll be tag teaming you with our questions. And so, Matt, you're the first guy to ask that question.
So, John, tell us a bit more about your business and what's the revenue model that you're planning to use?
Yeah, sure. So we have, a couple of core concepts that we really are pursuing. One is to advance art as a whole. Another is to advance the technology. And then a third is to make it usable and enjoyable for everyone. So we are, as a revenue model, the way that we're working is that we're creating these collectibles and we're selling the collectibles and we're making money on the sale of the product. Then we have a couple of other revenue channels as well as we develop. There's resale revenue. One of the interesting things in blockchain is that you can use the smart contracting functions so that anytime the pieces resell down the road, it kicks back little bits of that to us and to the artists, which they love too. That's really interesting.
Very interesting.
Value add for them. So, we're really using our tech to drive mass market uptake of this technology. We're looking to make an easier, simpler delivery that is much more accessible, and even a couple of basic tweaks, like we're doing everything in fiat without crypto on the front end of it, which is a little bit of a change of pace for most of the space. Fundamentally, we really want to just make it so easy that even your Saint Bernard could figure it out and be able to use the platform. So we're also building on mobile. That's another differentiator that really makes us interesting. A lot of people are not building on the mobile platform. A lot of the stuff is happening in web browsers or digital displays. But by going mobile, we're actually able to remove a lot of the restrictions of those displays and expand the art. Again, going to one of our sort of core philosophies there. Plus, it gives us the ability to add in lots of different features to the product. So we're able to do art that changes over time, art that changes based on location, art that changes depending on who you're with and who you're near. So it really creates a whole new level of art, creates a whole new experience of collecting, expands the marketplace, and feeds into a lot of our revenue model on the sale and the resale. And then it also opens up our future revenue models, which is these experientials. Ultimately, once you know who owns what, which is really what the NFT allows you to do, then you can start to treat the items not just as a collectible, but as a door opener, a ticket to an experience.
So, John, I read an article this morning in Financial Times that said there are a lot of people doing NFTs. What makes your business or platform unique?
Sure. Really, I think a couple of things. One is that we're really going at it with the end user in mind. I think that a lot of the stuff in the space right now is extremely complicated and difficult to use. And I think it's partially because it's new, but I think it's also partially because I think a lot of it's being built with the idea of finding new cool uses for the technology, but not really going at it with the end user in mind. So we're really going the other direction of it and saying, how can we use this technology to create something for the user? It's almost like in film where you see some movies that are just a platform for special effects. And then there's other movies where the special effects advance the story. And it's a completely different type of movie.
That's fascinating. John, why did you start your business? And did you see a need in the market, or, just exactly what happened?
Yeah, a number of years ago, I started to get into crypto, and I could tell it had so much potential, but it also just had so much confusion around it. And it is not simple. But, for me, it all kind of made sense. I used to do competitive mathematics in my youth, and I built computers and did tech support, and I worked in finance. And so this is all right in my wheelhouse. But then I would think about my mother or someone else who would never be able to make heads or tails of a lot of this. And I wanted to create something to expand it to all these other people. And it just didn't seem like anybody was really doing that. It seemed like there wasn't a use case, or there wasn't a model being built in that direction. So I just figured I had to be the one to do it.
Let me ask you this, John.
Yeah.
Does your mother know how to do it?
You know what? I'm getting there. I'm getting there with her. I've gotten most of the rest of my family to understand and come on board and figure out what we're doing. And she's really trying.
And Matt, you've got a question.
It must be fun.
Yeah.
So, John, what are you, if anything, what are you doing different? What have you done different during the pandemic?
Sure. So interestingly, the pandemic has been pretty crazy for the NFT space. I think having people locked away at home and having a complete shift in what people can and are spending money on has really driven a lot of virtual things. Like you saw that in Zoom, you saw that in Pelotons and a whole bunch of other platforms. And NFT as a concept has gained a tremendous amount of uptake in the last year, to the point at which I just saw one of the major platforms, OpenSea, just did $3.4 billion in revenue in August alone, which is bigger than Etsy did last quarter. So crazy numbers for the space. And so for us, one of the big things that's done is that I used to think I was going to have to spend a lot of time and resources doing explainers and bringing people up to speed on the core concepts. And now the penetration into the market has been completely different. And I think that now we can kind of move towards just creating a really cool product instead.
Right. So now what's your firm focusing on now?
Right now, to be honest, the number one thing that we're working on is our crowdfund. We're raising equity to get launched and to get off the ground. And that wraps up at the end of September. So after that, then we'll be finishing up the build, which is almost done, and then steaming on then that home stretch to the launch.
So you're not live yet?
No, not yet.
So I have a question for you. How did you come up with the name 343?
I kicked around a ton of different ideas, and 343 is a mathematical. It's a beautiful math, essentially. It's 7 cubed. It's also a palindrome, so it's the same forward and backward. And also 3 and 4 is 7 to the third is 343. So it's just a combination of mathematics and beauty, which I figured blockchain and art, it kind of worked. And it's also generic enough. It gives us a lot of room to expand down the road, sort of like a Google idea, where it doesn't get too specific to the product.
Right. So in the future, instead of we Google that, we'll just say we 343 that, and that will basically tell people that we're buying art on your NFT platform, right? We 343.
Yeah, might get together with friends over the weekend to go 343.
So I have a question. How do you make decisions in your business? I mean, and by the way, did you ask people on the name? Or did it just, when you talk to your wife or talk to some of the other people on your team, you said, I'm coming up with this name 343. I love the concept and why. What did they think?
Yeah, so to be honest, with the decisions right now, the buck stops with me, but I have a lot of people who inform my decisions, and I definitely pull the audience. So I talk to family, I talk to friends, I talk to a couple of people on my advisory board, and really try to pull opinions and resources. But interestingly, the space is so cutting edge, and what we're doing with it is so far advanced to what even has been going on so far, that a lot of it really is just vision and not to sound too unhumble here, but almost like Steve Jobs coming out with the iPod. It's something that the space isn't even there yet. People don't even know that they necessarily want it, but I can see where it's going. And so that's a lot of how I make the decisioning is where do I want to take this?
I love that. So, Matt and I often ask, we say that, how do you know you made a mistake? You made a mistake, it cost you money. How do you know you made a big mistake? It cost you a lot of effing money. So, so the question is, how do you know when you've made a mistake? You're, it's such an interesting junction point in your business. How do you know you've made a mistake?
It's really just keeping feedback channels open. If the results are not there that I'm looking for, then you got to pivot. You got to iterate. I do a lot of outreach to potential users and customers. I do a lot of outreach to potential artists, and I'm constantly talking to people about what we're doing and getting a lot of feedback and picking apart what they're telling me and trying to listen to what the audience wants, and ultimately to try to fast track that product market fit as much as possible.
Okay, Matt?
Interesting. So John, tell us a little bit about your team and what they're doing.
Sure. Yeah. So my core team is my two co-heads here. My CTO is a guy who I met through some networking connections. I talked to a bunch of different folks about it. And I really loved his approach. He has run a app development, software development company for a number of years, his own company. And he builds really beautiful product. And he also has spent the last couple of years really developing expertise in blockchain and a lot of connections in blockchain. So he's good with the tech, he's good with the people, he's good with the networking, and he makes pretty things. So I like that a lot. Then I have my financial head, CFO here, who I knew also through my network. And it turned out actually we went to the same school at the same time, and I didn't even know her then, but I met her for the first time, I suppose, in a roundabout fashion. And she also has run a startup consultancy for a number of years, for a decade or so, where she advises companies on finding revenue source or honing in on what their revenue sources are and their business drivers, and valuating the company and raising capital. And to that end, she also has a number of connections in the capital raising space, which once we get a little bit bigger, I'm hoping will come in handy.
And she also has something in common with all of us. you went to Cornell. Matt's daughter went to Cornell. My daughter went to Cornell. So
that is correct. Cornell is a phenomenal place.
Yeah, we loved going up to visit. So that's really interesting that you really met, sounds like most of your team through networking, and that they're running their own companies separately. But I guess they find your new business and so intriguing. They want to be a part of it.
Yeah, exactly. So, right now we're at a stage that's relatively early. And so we are bringing in people who have experiences and we're really building towards something. But ideally this will take off and everybody will, and we'll build out a much more robust full-time staff of folks over time, and likely fairly quickly from the looks of it.
well, that's great. That's great. I'm actually fixing my camera as we talk. So there you go. There we're jumping around. So it's really interesting. I know we've put a script together and I have some questions, but I'm curious, how have you financed the business so far? I know we're going to talk about your crowdfunding, but how have you financed it so far?
Sure. Basically, savings and family have been my sources so far. So
It's typical.
Essentially self-funded with help from family.
That's great.
And now part of the reason we're actually expanding to the crowdfund, interestingly, is rather than just continuing to self-fund it, is almost as much a marketing move as anything else, where we're building this company with the idea that it will be mass market. And so we wanted to open up the funding to be pseudo mass market too, get a lot of people involved and have a lot of people with a vested interest in really making this something special. So I figured that was a neat way to really put some accelerant on the launch once we get there and on the build.
That's great. So what do you think are the most important lessons you've learned in doing this business?
I would say probably 2 or 3 things. One would be action over inaction, feedback over perfection. A lot of times you want to spend so much time making something just the way you want it, but it's much better to act and have and push product out, and then let the market feedback and the iterations and whatnot. So, I've done, as I mentioned, a lot of conversations with people over time, and I take the feedback and use that to inform the next round. So that's number one, is I would say get a lot of feedback, keep iterating, and to that end also, MVP is something I was, as a concept, less familiar with originally, that has made a lot more sense over time.
Could you explain
product?
John, can you explain MVP?
Yeah, it's a minimum viable product. And essentially what it means is you take your concept and you strip away and strip away and strip away till you get to the absolute core of it. So rather than building 100 bells and whistles, you find what's your number one thing and you build that. And then you build the bells and whistles over time based on the feedback of the market. So rather than building 100 things that maybe people will only use 20 of, and you spend all this time and effort and money building 80 things that nobody cares about, you really get a much better product fit with the marketplace.
Right. That's basically the critical path. You're always searching for the critical path.
Yeah, exactly. So you really want to, and to be honest, it took me a longer time than I wish it had to get there, because your impulse is to try to make this beautiful, perfect thing because you put so much heart and soul and passion into it, that, and you're so concerned that everybody's going to judge you about it and whatever, but you really just got to move on it and do that MVP, and then let the feedback come and shape what's coming next.
So what would you say? I mean, it's hard when I often ask, and Matt and I often ask, what's the golden business nugget? So, what would you say is I know there are several, but I think you were talking about developing a blockchain strategy now.
Yeah, I would say that's my number one recommendation for every business, is develop blockchain and potentially NFT strategy.
Hold on a second. This is live.
That guy's way.
Got a street noise. close the window.
Yeah.
You guys didn't know that I've got a vodcast going on, and I put signs down on the street, but it didn't help. So.
Said honk if you love vodcasts.
That's right.
Bad time to hang that sign. But yeah, so I'd say develop a blockchain strategy and an NFT strategy, because this stuff is, people I don't think really fully understand how much this is going to change the game. It's going to really, really be tremendously impactful. And I think that NFTs and blockchain are going to be some of the fundamental technologies that underlie virtually everything within a few years. There's so many different applications and so many different ways that they'll seep into things. And the earlier that people get on them, it reminds me a lot of 93, 94, 95 in the internet era, where there was, people who were just starting to get into the space, and a lot of people would sort of look at it and didn't really get it and said, why am I going to read my news online when I can just get a paper on the corner and
or whoever thought of having a camera in a phone? Who needs that? You have a camera,
exactly, all these
phone. I mean, seriously.
But the people who got on it early and really staked it out, it is a game changer. These blockchain and NFTs are going to be that kind of a technology.
Oh, that's great. So it's fascinating to hear you talk, John, because in this perspective here, you are a true visionary, and it really is amazing. And we talk about CEOs being a visionary, but my goodness, you are definite proof of that. So I know we're looking at the time, and we're going to move along. So Matt and I want to thank you for a fascinating conversation. We can go on and on and on.
I could talk about this all day.
I'm sure you could, and we could listen to it all day, because it really is very interesting. So as you know, and I'm talking to the audience, we look for that one golden business nugget. So I'm going to have to say that there are several as I've listened to John. One is to gather feedback and iterate instead of pursuing perfection. That comes to your minimum viable product, the critical path, always really focusing on that. The other one was to build the best product, do it faster, in the same vein, deliver it to the most cost-effective way, keep testing, keep tweaking, and pivoting as you uncover consumer preference. And then lastly, here's where you are the visionary, that you predict that blockchain and NFTs will be the fundamental building blocks for the coming economy. And it's going to happen in the very near future. So, for those folks of us who have the iPhone, right? Here we are, blockchain, NFTs. So, John, maybe you want to say a few words and talk about how people can invest in your venture.
Yeah, sure, definitely. So, I'd say a couple of things. One, you can always find us at 343.com, THREE43.com. And through the end of September, we have our crowdfund running. So if anybody wants to get a piece of the company and own it and come along for this phenomenal ride with us, you can go to app.myventure, MIVENTURE.com. That's app.myventure.com/campaigns/343. So campaigns, CAMPAIGNS, and 343, THREE43. app.myventure.com/campaigns/343.
Now, the simplest way to go is just go to 343.com, and then you can get to the crowdfunding from there?
Yeah, I believe there's a banner across the top of the page that'll take you there as well.
Good. So Matt?
Either one.
So we hope you all enjoyed this vodcast, and you can subscribe to our Mind Your Own Business with Mike and Matt on our YouTube channel and also on our Facebook page. And you can also see us at videosocials.net and on our LinkedIn posts.
So I'm Mike.
I'm Matt.
And together we are the Voices of Reason. And this has been another Mind Your Own Business vodcast with Mike and Matt. Stay positive, test negative. Thanks for watching, and see you soon.
Bye, everybody. Stay well.